Today I want to talk about discipline, but not in the way everyone talks about discipline, because honestly, I'm a little tired of the way everyone talks about discipline. The wake up at 5 a.m. stuff, the cold showers, the grind, the suffer now so you can whatever later. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen it. We've all seen it. It's everywhere. And I'm not saying none of that is useful. Some of it genuinely is. But I think there's something really important missing from almost every conversation about discipline that I've ever come across. And it's this: discipline without direction is just suffering with good branding. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And I want to spend some time actually unpacking what I mean by that, because I think it touches something that a lot of people are quietly going through right now and don't have the words for. So here's what I've noticed. And I've lived this, which is why I feel like I can actually say it with some conviction. There's this thing that happens when you get really into self-improvement content, or really into the idea of becoming a better version of yourself, which is great. That impulse is good and I'm not against it. But what happens is you start building all of these habits and routines and disciplines, and the whole structure of your day becomes about performing a kind of productivity. You're waking up early, you're working out, you're reading, you're doing the things, and it looks good. From the outside, it looks really good, and it feels good for a while, because there's genuine satisfaction in being disciplined, in doing the hard thing, in proving to yourself that you can. But then at some point, and this is the part nobody talks about, you look up from all of it and you go, okay, I've been incredibly disciplined, and I'm going where exactly? Like, what is all of this in service of? And if you don't have a good answer to that, if the honest answer is, I don't really know, I'm just doing the things because the things feel better than not doing the things, then you have a problem. A quiet one. The kind that builds slowly and eventually tumbles on you. Because here's what discipline actually is. It's a vehicle. And that's it. It's just a vehicle that can take you somewhere faster and more reliably than you'd get there without it or with just motivation. But a vehicle needs a direction and it needs a destination. And if you don't have one or two of those things or both, if you're just driving because driving feels more purposeful than sitting still, then you're really not making any progress, right? Like, if your goal is to drive all the way to Pennsylvania, but you don't follow a path and you're just taking random left and right turns, then you're really just burning fuel. And I think a lot of people are burning a lot of fuel right now. Everyone talks about discipline like it's the answer to everything. Wake up early, do the hard thing, push through, and yeah, sure, okay. But discipline toward what exactly? Because I've been incredibly disciplined about things that had nothing to do with where I actually wanted to go. And it felt productive. It looked productive. But I was just suffering in an organized way. Because discipline is a vehicle, and a vehicle without a destination is just a guy driving in circles looking busy. Figure out the direction first, then be disciplined about it. Because that way, you will actually be moving somewhere in service to where you actually want to end up in life. And the reason I think this happens so much, and why people can go into this loop of disciplined but directionless, is that figuring out the direction is actually the harder thing by a lot. Because being disciplined is difficult in a very clean, manageable way. You either did the thing or you didn't. You either got up when the alarm went off or you didn't. It's uncomfortable, but it's simple. There's a clear metric. You can measure it. You can feel good about it in a very immediate and satisfying way. Figuring out what you actually want your life to look at, what you're actually building towards, that's messy. And there's no alarm to set for it. There's no checkbox at the end of the day that you can have filled. It requires you to sit with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of uncomfortable questions about who you are and what you actually value versus what you've been told to value. And so a lot of people just skip that part. Consciously or not, they just jump straight into the discipline because the discipline feels like progress even when it isn't moving them anywhere specific. It's easier to optimize the vehicle than to figure out where you're going. I think about this a lot in terms of my own life and the times I've been most disciplined versus the times I've been the most alive. And they don't always overlap. That was an uncomfortable thing to realize. There are periods where I was doing everything right on paper, the routine was locked in, the habits were there, I was doing the things, and I was kind of miserable. Not dramatically, but, and not like something was catastrophically wrong, but just this quiet, flat, underlying feeling like I was running an engine in neutral, and all the noise and heat of motion without actually going anywhere. And then there were other times where honestly the routine was a mess and I wasn't doing half the things I was supposed to be doing, but I felt alive because I was pointed at something real, something I actually cared about, something that got me out of my own head and into the actual work of building something that mattered to me. And the difference between those two states wasn't discipline, it was direction. So I think the first thing is just being honest with yourself about whether you know where you're going, not the version you tell someone at a dinner party or a family meetup, but the version you would admit to yourself at 2 in the morning when nobody's watching. Because I think a lot of people have a vague sense of a direction, but they don't actually commit to it. They're hedging, they're keeping options open. They're doing the discipline stuff, but applying it broadly across their life instead of pointing it at something specific. And that's not nothing, but it's also not as powerful as it could be. The discipline compounds when it has a target, when every hard thing you do is in service of a specific thing you're building. That's when the suffering starts to mean something. That's when it stops being suffering and starts being investment. There's a difference between a person who wakes up early because waking up early is what disciplined people do, and a person who wakes up early because there's a specific thing they're building and the morning is the only quiet time they have to build it. Same action, completely different relationship to it, completely different result over time. One of those people is performing discipline, the other one is using it to their advantage. I'm not saying you need to have everything figured out. I'm figuring it out as I go, same as everyone else. But I think there's a version of figuring it out where you're genuinely asking the question, what am I actually building here? What do I actually want? What would my life need to look like for me to feel like I'm moving in the right direction? And there's a version where you're just staying busy enough that you never have to sit with the question at all. And one of those versions leads somewhere. The other one just leads to more discipline, which sounds good, but after a while starts feeling very hollow. Figure out the direction, then be worthless, or then be ruthless about it. That's my 2 cents.